On this week's episode, I had the honor and privilege to sit down with one of my heroes, David Meltzer. David and I talk about a lot. We talk about his books. He's a two-time best-selling author. We get into charity and how important it is to be charitable. We talk about some of the systems he put in place, like his 5-20 rule. He gives people 5 minutes for his phone calls and 20 minutes for meetings. This is part one of a two-part series. We will be going to Los Angeles to film part two, right at David's office, where he's going to give us an hour of his time to complete this full episode. And as a special bonus, we would like to give you a free Audible download of David's book, Connected to Goodness, with Harrison Leibowitz, in the foreword by Warren Moon. Visit the link in our show notes or go to audibletrial.com/American Real to claim your offer. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the one, the only, David Meltzer. This is American Real. I am Roger Brooks. My guest today is David Meltzer, the co-founder and CEO of Sports One Marketing and S1 Media House. You are a two-time #1 best-selling author and have been named a top 10 keynote speaker by Forbes and Entrepreneur. Marshall Goldsmith has recognized you as a top 100 business coach, and you're currently an advisory board member to over 45 companies and charities. More recently, you invested into Splice, one of the world's top esports teams, alongside NBA All-Star Meta World Peace. You're the executive producer and host to Entrepreneur's original show, Elevator Pitch, with nearly 40 million views, and host of the top 5 business podcast, The Playbook. You were awarded the Ellis Island Medal of Honor and Variety Magazine's Sports Humanitarian of the Year. It is my pleasure to introduce the CEO who travels the world helping people, Dave Meltzer. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. I would love those introductions because I think to myself, if my mom's listening, she's like, yeah, but my other son's a doctor.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
It's embarrassing, but thank you.
Well, look, I've been following you now for a long time, and it's such an honor, especially in today's world. As we talked off camera, the world's getting smaller. So for me, someone who's looked up to you, have put some of your practices into my world as an entrepreneur, to be able to sit down with you and for you to give me the time, #1, thank you. I'm honored. And, I just wonder how that is like for you when you meet someone that you have touched, because I'm sure you run into people probably every day now where that's happening.
It's really interesting, especially because of my background of, being the CEO of Lee Steinberg Sports and Entertainment and being business partners with Warren Moon. I saw it from a different perspective, right? I saw people, if I was with Troy Aikman or Steve Young or Warren Moon or Lennox Lewis or Vander Holyfield or any of the greats that Lee had represented, Warren Moon changes people's lives just from what he represents, especially as the African-American quarterback.
Sure.
And we don't even hardly say African-American quarterback anymore. That's how much Warren Moon has helped the NFL with equality, right? They're just quarterbacks, bad, good, idiots, not idiots.
We don't see color.
Yeah, you don't see it because there's so many, right? It's just a norm. In fact, my son, which is one of my favorite progressions in the world, when President Trump was elected, he's like, wow, we have a white president. Because I realized he was born when Obama was elected, so he only knew an African-American president.
Isn't that something?
Which is perspective. So for me, for people to come up to me the way they did my heroes, we market the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the Dan Fouts and Joe Namath and Joe Montanas of the world. It's just not even real. Walk in the airport and people tell you, thank you so much. I love your videos. You changed your life. Or they'll yell, hey, 120 rule, or they'll see me, I'm already choking up, and just cry. Yeah. Like, last night I spoke here in New York, and this one woman could hardly get it out and just say, and just broke down. You changed my life. I know it's the amplification of what I do that is, I've always had great ideas and they've evolved, but it's so nice that I'm able to reach and resonate with so many people. And I think the biggest difference in my life is just to be myself When people give you reassurance, then it's just even easier and easier to dress the way you want, say what you think, not care as much about the haters. And I try to teach people in my business coaching, stop the noise, find your frequency, right? I'd rather people hate me for who I am than love me for who I'm not. Instead of when I was younger, I was such a pleaser.
And most of us are like that. I mean, I grew up like that too. And throughout my business career, putting on this facade of someone we're not. Why? Why does that happen? But it's people like you and me that we're getting these great messages out there to help others take that leap. That's what I love.
Yeah, and you do. I really enjoy. One reason I wanted to come here to New York to come on to your show is that I think you really do a nice job of encouraging people that it's okay to have flaws. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to have miracles. And it's funny because most people don't know what I'm talking about when I say miracles. Most people define them as failures. I think they're miracles. Every time that I create a struggle or a challenge or a void, shortage or obstacle, it's a miracle to me because it pushes me in the right direction.
Exactly. So this morning I saw a video you posted about the bamboo tree. I love that because it really explained how it takes 4 or 5 years for that foundation to be set. And as an entrepreneur, even anyone in life getting started out, or maybe you're changing careers, you need to take that time, right? It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
And you know that better than anyone.
And it's also necessary. So one of the things, there's an old video that I did. Most people probably haven't seen it, but someone brought it up today to me, was the butterfly story, the cocoon. So,
yes, I love it.
Right?
Yes.
And the butterfly is sitting there. The farmer looks down, is trying to break out of the cocoon. Because my biggest fear in life right now is for our children. That, the helicopter parent, 8th place trophy, the participant, and even I'm the nice guy in my relationship with my wife. Thank goodness my wife's a great parent.
I'm just like you.
I'm a terrible parent.
Right.
Right? My daughter's like, can I buy? Sure. No, but this is so important because it's the same as the bamboo tree. But I think the analogy reaches that the farmer, when he cuts open the cocoon to help the butterfly come out, he's killed the butterfly. It'll never fly. And that's what we're doing to our children. And even in America, sometimes that's what we're doing to our people. We're cutting the cocoon. Look, it's really important to build those wings up and break out. It's important for the bamboo to take 4 years. Why does it grow so fast when it breaks through? Because it's so strong.
Yeah.
I want to be strong, and I want my kids to be strong, and I want other kids to be strong so that we can, the pursuit is the happiness, not the pursuit. We don't pursue happiness. It's the happiness in the 4 years for the bamboo struggling. We call it struggle. I call it pursuit. I think, too, one of the things I've learned is definition of words, like work. I hate when people say you're busy or work. There's no busy in my life. We all have 24 hours of activity. It's how accessible and productive you are. There's no such thing as work. There is activity you get paid for and activity that you don't get paid for. And I'm blessed because I get paid for stuff that people would pay to do, just as if the second baseman for the Padres, he makes $2 million. I'd pay $1 million. And hear me out right now. If the coach is listening, I will pay you $1 million if you let me play second base next year for the Padres. I promise you, your ranking in the National League West won't be any worse than last year having me at second base. I promise you.
We're going to make
because it was last place.
That's right. No, but I get your point.
Yeah,
100%. So you have developed all kinds of systems, trial and error. Last night you talked about learning. We have to learn. It's not, we have to learn from our mistakes. But I love it. So if we could get into a couple of those things like 520. Some people have never heard of it. Let's talk about the 520 rule because I love it and I'm trying to adopt it into my life.
A few of my strict rules that I've learned that changed my life is a 520 rule. My objective during business, activity I get paid for, is to keep all my phone calls to 5 minutes and all my business meetings to 20 minutes. And the reason is it makes me more productive and more accessible, which ties into productivity and accessibility being a student of your calendar. In order to keep the 520 rule, you can see even setting up this interview, these guys are right on the time by minutes, right? We need to leave now. But think about it. If you can be twice as productive, twice as efficient, and twice as effective, you can, what I call the 64, right? The power of 64 in my book. I can have 64 hours of productivity in a day. Compared to what most people do is they call it work, 8 hours, but they have 2 hours of productivity. So they wonder why. You read off the accolades and the productive things that I've done. They're like, how do you do all that? Well, that list represents about 10%. Like my publicist has to narrow out all the other things that there are, because every day I'm producing a minimum of 7 days a week, by the way, because remember, when you define things as activity you get paid for and you enjoy the pursuit, like people are like, you got to relax. What are you talking about? Relaxing is enjoying. Like I'm a 7 days a week guy.
I love this.
And I tell my wife, I don't always sit. I had to figure out how to be productive and relax because my relationship with my wife's so important. And she likes to read by a pool in some Bahamas or, Cabo. And it drove me crazy because there's only so many laps in a pool that I can swim and pretend like I'm relaxing.
You get Nancy.
Yeah, not me. I started writing books.
Smart.
Right? Started outlining. Thank goodness they got internet by the pools now.
That's right.
And now somehow I've learned, in my wife's eyes, I've learned to relax more because I can sit next to her at a pool. Meanwhile, my mind is productive and accessible. Ear pods, I'll even cheat sometimes and have one ear pod in so she can't see it. Right. And I'm listening, to a podcast, or I take a quick phone call. There's so many tools.
Yeah. And recently, I actually put it up one of your quotes last week where you talk about sleep, how important sleep is in the preparation for sleep. Because, and I've been trying this now for just over a week, but I'm actually seeing results where you could before you go to bed, you could train yourself to concentrate on some things that may help you figure some solutions out in the morning, right?
With a higher source, right? A higher power, subconscious and unconscious thought. Sleep directly, think about this, 1/3 of your life is spent sleeping. And think how much of time we spend and resources put towards the activities of getting paid, usually 8 hours a day on average, some people. Imagine if you put that much focus on how to be productive and accessible in your sleep.
Yeah.
And then moreover, that goes into the student of the calendar again, because just as important as to do the 5-20 analysis to get as many meetings and phone calls that are productive and accessible in a day, it's the white space of your calendar where most people fall down.
Yes.
Most people are pretty good at being productive and accessible in a meeting or a phone call that's already scheduled. They don't miss it. They might take too long and they don't get to the point, or they don't know how to be statistically successful. But where they really fall down, if you're going to start studying the white space in your calendar, just like you study sleep.
Yeah.
Because that's where the relationships are developed, the business pipeline's full, how you can truly change your business exponentially by what you're not doing in the day.
I love that. And I think a whole book could be written on that topic itself. So I'd like to, if you can, just spend a couple minutes. I don't know if you've ever talked about this, but I'm interested in two things. One, how did you come up with that? Like, did you sit down one day and say, I need to figure out some type of a rule where I'm more productive? How did it happen?
Well, it started with the power of 64. I'm a math person.
Okay.
Because I believe the universe loves simple. I believe in math. And it started with just plain value. I decided when I lost everything that if I changed my perspective, instead of everything comes for me to everything comes through me, started praying for 10 people to help, that if all I focused in on is how much value can I provide, that it would create a void for the universe to fill. Instead of for me making promises and filling my own void, I just trusted the universe and I was of service.
Okay.
And asking for help.
Okay. That
led to, okay, if I'm going to provide value, what are the 3 components to provide value? I need to be more productive, right? More effective and efficient. So my idea was if I work 16, and back then I called it work. If I'm active for pay 16 hours a day and I was twice as efficient, so times 2, 16 times 2 is 32, and I was twice as statistically successful, 32 times 2, I could have 64 hours of productivity. So everything now with a lens of productivity then led to, all right, time. And understanding my calendar, understanding do it now, right? And how much time it takes if you don't do something now. All of the things stem from the power of 64. The variance that has evolved over the last 12 years for me is accessibility. Because of the value paradigm shift, because of that quantum shift in my life, that I decided accessible. Number one, how accessible am I to everyone else? Because I'm of service, I'm providing value. I need 10 people to help every day minimum. So how can I be more accessible? In order to be more accessible to the people most relative to me, my wife, my children, then my family, then my business, right? Then my community, and then the world. That's my order. How can I be more accessible? I had to, once again, go back to the student of the calendar, go back to do it now, go to the 520 rule, the 120 rule, which is provide $100 of value and only ask for 20 back. Then it came to how the duality of accessibility came to how am I accessing things? So not only how can I be of service, but do you know anyone that can help me? And those two questions keep taking a higher role. If you watch my videos, I keep telling people there's a matrix in person, on the phone, via email, and so not even social media, TV, print, radio, and social media. This matrix, based on that foundation, is based off of two questions. Every day, how can I be of service? And do you know anyone that can help me? And if that exponentially grows, if I motivate you and say, hey, do you know anyone that can help me? And then you ask Lewis House, do you know anyone that can help Dave? And Lewis House asks people, do you know anyone that can help Dave? Between just 3 people, me, you, and Lewis House, we could reach 1 billion people.
Yeah.
1 billion.
Powerful.
That's never been happened before.
That is life changing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the cool thing was you could do it without engagement on TV, because I've been on major shows before. I've been on radio and print before. But the impact of being able to find my frequency on social media every day, because I couldn't get on TV every day. But the people that do get on TV every day, like Oprah, have the most influence in the world. Mm-hmm. But that internet, it provided me a great platform and you to reach people every day.
That's right. So my second question, I want to get back to this a little bit. Please. So my second question is the old you. Okay, so let's go back, 25 years.
You didn't say old Jew, you said old you.
The old Jew. But I my father's Jewish, so I could say
I'm
that.
a Jew to Buddha. People ask me my religion, all they look at me. I look like a New York Jew. I'm not, but I am Buddhist philosophy, and I believe in all religions that help people. Be inspired.
I love it.
Yeah.
So the old you.
Yeah.
Would you have given away so much information that you are today? Would you have given your 520 rule, right?
No, because I was scarce, right? When you're a manipulator and things are for you, right? That's why my relationship changed with my father when he gave me a jacket with no pockets and told me you can't take anything with you. And he said, I'm most afraid because you're like me. And I talked to someone last night who also has some father issues. And he said, did it bother you when someone said you look like your father? I said, oh no, but it bothered me even worse when people say you're just like your father. I would argue, because I was so scarce and in denial. No more. There's enough of everything for everyone. And when you live in the premise of more than enough, all you want to do is give everything away. I'm not stupid. I'm giving everything away that I have, starting with my wife, then to my children, then to my mother, then to the rest of my relatives, then to my business, then to the community, then to the world. And that's why I have the Crescent Moon Foundation to give scholarships to kids, in my local environment. But that's why I do Unstoppable to change kids of the world.
Yeah. And I want to talk about charity a little bit too. You inspired me to start one. So my family is starting the BFF, which is the Brooks Family Foundation. My wife came up with the name. My kids are going to be involved.
Cool.
We're going to start by giving shoes to children in need. We've been doing that anyway, but now I want to do it in a big way. And I want to make it part of our brand and part of what we're doing. Because wherever I go, whether I'm in LA or New York or Chicago, I could give shoes away. And that'll make me feel good.
Can when you come, you're going to do a segment too with me in LA.
Yes.
Right. And so when you come, believe it or not, with 3 daughters and a wife, guess who has the most shoes?
Really?
Yeah. When we had the Haiti incident, I gave away 300 pairs.
Wow.
So I believe taking care of my feet. So I buy new socks and shoes and I give them away. So I'd love to be a major donor to the BFF.
Oh, we would welcome it. We would welcome it. Thank you. And my wife also has a kind of a shoe fetish, like many women, but she's really on board because it is important. Do you remember when we were kids? There was nothing like putting on a pair of new shoes, right?
Still,
yeah, absolutely.
And so new socks.
We want to give as many kids that feeling, and that's why we started. But I wanted you to know that's because of you.
Oh.
But then my next question is, what do you think about this whole podcast world? It is exploding. And I relate it to like in music, how the artists are pairing up and they'll do a song together. Sports, it's a whole new medium. And I'm really interested to get your take on what's happening before our eyes.
Yeah, and I was with Ryan Leslie last night, and he did this in music, right? He directly sold his album, using YouTube. And that's what's happening with podcasts. It's giving an opportunity for those people who feel that they have a message that can inspire others to start. And the people that are good at it, I coach a lot of people on how to write books, how to speak, podcasts, etc. And I always tell them, look, I can tell you exactly how to be successful at it. But the one thing I can't teach you is the first component, and it's called the Disney component. Content. You got to have your frequency. And it's taken me, I'm 51 years old, it's taken me years and years to evolve to a higher frequency with a farther reach, a stronger signal, right? This is what creates a good podcast with a bigger following. And if you have that, and if you don't, just keep developing it. It doesn't matter. Just by exponential math, if you start with 200 people that like your podcast, and the next year it's 400, and the next year it's 1,600, and the next year is 1,600 times 1,600, which I don't know the answer to, and then that times that. Well, within 5 or 6 years, you have one of the most popular podcasts in America.
Yeah.
The problem is people don't stick with it. I stuck with it just on my Instagram following. 200 followers last November, right? And I sit there with a huge following today, just on Instagram, let alone LinkedIn is maxed out, right? Hopefully LinkedIn's looking, because I'm looking to be one of those special influencers that they allow to have more followers, right? Because I've maxed it out. Honestly, find your frequency and stick to it. It doesn't matter if, when just traditionally, you're old enough too, Roger, that
49, right behind you.
Right behind me, I would be so excited to get on people. And I see these kids and young people that are starting to share their ideas to inspire other people. They're disappointed that they only have 200 people, and that they can touch 200 people a day with their ideas. And, I know the formula to be successful. Just stick with it.
And you're saying don't minimize that 200.
No way.
Because that's,
I would love,
again, those are those
there's
bamboo
200
roots.
seats in this comedy
Right.
club that we're in.
Sure.
If you get a packed house, these comedians are stoked.
Absolutely.
And you can make money.
I'd love to share a quick story with you.
Please.
So I'm teaching people how to podcast because I want to pass what I know on to them so they could do the same thing.
Yeah.
So over the summer, I was with a family, friend's nephew, and real close family. And the kid says to me, I love what you're doing. I said, hey, come with me, learn. And he said, well, I want to do my own thing. I said, great. I said, I'll help you. He says, what do I need to do? So I gave him some tips. Starts his own podcast. Gets a buddy. The two of them started their own podcast called Real Talk University that you were on.
Really?
Yes. They interviewed you a couple of weeks ago, 2 college kids from Binghamton University.
Oh, yeah. I love those guys.
So here's what's crazy. They started very recently. I think they're in episode 12 or something.
Yeah.
The guests that they're getting, they got you.
Yeah.
They're teaching me.
Dave, I didn't get Dave.
Right, but they're teaching me. So what I love about this world now is that everyone is sharing. No longer, that's why I asked you, would the old you have given that information away? Because that's the same way I used to think.
Yeah.
But now I'm so passionate about, I want to pass this on. But you said it right, it's consistency. You have to stay consistent.
Yeah, and frequency. So one of the things that's interesting, we talked about Lewis Howes, who I really like his podcast. But when I asked to go on his podcast, which I wanted to do, he's like, well, you know what? It doesn't fit right now. It's not. And my ego is like the need to be offended because I've been on the biggest podcast in the world, right? I have one of the top podcasts. Right. And yet I understand podcasts that it's about the frequency of the show.
Yeah.
Right. And too many people also, and I want this as a lesson, in its right time, everybody will align. You're better off not having someone that isn't on your frequency. And, and we pick our guests now, and I had to expand out Playbook to sports, business, and kind of charitable philanthropy, right? Because there's different segments. And now NBC Sports just picked up the Playbook for sports. So the Danikas and the Maria Sharapovas and the, Ray Lewis's of the world, they'll be shown on TV even.
Right.
But there's certain CEOs, like one of my favorite interviews, Aubrey Marcus, for example, or Howard Behar from Starbucks. Those are great ones.
Sure.
Can't put that on a sports channel.
Right. And that's what's nice about that medium you have. That's great.
So don't be offended if people say no, it'll be the right time. Sometimes young kids call me and I'm like, do you really want, I'll give you 20 minutes because those are the ones I hold to 20, but do you really want me on right now? Am I going to have the most impact for you? Mm-hmm. Do you want to wait until you can really cannibalize my audience? Mm-hmm. Like when you're more developed and you're free. So I let them know that, but I'll do what they want to do.
And that's wonderful. It's just wonderful. So I have a coaching question for you.
Cool.
What advice would you give someone like me? I'm 73 episodes in, year and a half doing this. I want to teach this. We started an academy. I want to teach people how to write books and podcasts. Very similar to you.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for someone like me?
So number one, you can get the guests, right? The list of guys that you're coming out to. What I would get better at is understanding their audience. So one of the things, I come under the rule of be more interested than interesting.
Yes.
One of the things that I do is make sure that I understand your audience. So even though I'm coming on to this, I want to understand your following so that while I'm coming on, I can speak to your audience, because my goal of coming on is to get more people exposure to to listen to both of us.
Right.
And so if I'm not speaking, because I have such a wide variety of things I can talk on, if I'm not talking to your audience, I'm making a huge mistake. And now specifically to your audience, one of my goals, for example, is to empower them to give to charity. So we covered that. I would love to have, I have a huge business coaching practice that was certified coaches, being a top 100. I wanted to make sure that people know that I have a great way, a guaranteed way to change your life. I'm one of the few coaches out there. I do free assessments. I work month to month, and every month is guaranteed, meaning I don't have a set charge. I do an assessment and say, this is how I'm a profit center. I'm going to charge you X, but you better make X times 2 to 5 every month, or I'm not charging you, or I'm giving your money back. And I go into it going, it's just month to month. But one of the best values that I give that no one else does is 4 a.m. to 11 p.m. I'm on call 7 days a week.
Wow.
Because I want you, I had one of my coaching clients this morning, and he said, I just like you in my corner. That's the true
just
10x value. You're in my corner, even if you didn't do the focus calls and the focus homework and the videos, content, and everything that you give me. It's the ability of knowing when I'm getting Pete Rose to do my forward, which I never would have got before. I didn't even use your name, Dave. It was just Dave's in my corner, and I could call him and say, how do I ask? What do I do? Can you look this over?
Wow.
And to get that was worth, he said, priceless to him.
Is your business scalable in that regard? Like, how many people can you help?
Yeah, so that's the downline is another piece of advice, because you're about to scale. And so one of the things that I did really well to scale a business is to have a downline. So there's certain areas that, number one, qualification. You've got to have a process of vetting and qualifying, and that process has to be efficient. So to help everyone, that doesn't mean I personally help everyone, because I don't have the skills, knowledge, and desire to help. I have the desire to help when I don't have the capacity. But where I think excel is that I have this great downline, like even this relationship. I'll refer people that say, hey, I want to be on guest on podcasts. I have a great guest around here. Jonte Hall came to mind. He's one of my coaching clients. He is the smallest professional basketball player, Harlem Globetrotter.
Really? Oh, yeah.
He's
sure. Yeah.
Good, right?
Yes.
But I'm just a downline for Jonte. So I create all these downstreams that overlap agreements. I get a 10% referral fee. Charities, I know where to send you. Coaching, I have a coaching program. So if coaching is something you want to do, I have a program that is so no-brainer, because not only do I teach you to coach, but I have so many overflow clients. Once I teach you to coach, I oversee it. So people can still call me if they have a question, but you're managing the coaching, making more money, helping more people, and having more fun.
So I may be a good candidate for you.
I would love it. Colleen will send you the coaching information.
Awesome. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I think we just have a couple more minutes. Dave, you have a new book that I understand you've been working on with McGraw-Hill.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm very excited. I've been blessed to have success with my other books, but this is a full force effort, right? This is one that will be seen at the airports. This is one that will really be out there. And we give away my books, by the way. So just so you know, anyone that wants to DM me, reach out to me. I will not only give you my book for free, but I will pay for shipping. That's how much I want people to learn the lessons of connected to goodness. I also have a workbook for charity from Jack Canfield, myself, and Cynthia Kersey that is only 30 pages that will change your life. But business strategies using the biggest names in sports and business. I have a business strategies book coming out with McGraw-Hill for that. And it is the combination of that workbook with the connected to goodness. It's spiritual, but business oriented. But it's using one of the things that I do well is I tell stories. And so I use sports and business stories so that people, I'm not just giving you a lesson.
Mm-hmm. It's relatable.
A neophyte author giving you my principles and key elements. It's straightforward. People love it. But I've evolved. Now I can do it with stories. The lessons come through the stories instead of me just listing them out with the stories. And I use really cool stories because I've had great access in my life to wonderful athletes, wonderful business people, and it's going to kill it.
I'm really excited. Do you have a title yet that you could
It's
say?
well, right now it's business strategies, the biggest names in sports, using the business names of sports and business. That's the one, the working title. It's coming out. I would think this fall.
Excellent. So, I can't wait for that.
Yeah,
I can't wait for that. Dave, this has been amazing. I feel like I met a new friend today.
Yes, for sure.
And possibly a new coach.
Yes.
And one last question before I let you go. I actually have two, but I'm going to save one for our second one. If you were to pull out your cell phone right now and call the 20-year-old Dave, what would you tell him?
Be radically humble. So I think the hardest thing to do when you're young is to have humility. You know, you just don't know what you don't know. And humility to me means asking for help. And I had a disadvantage that most people don't have. And they're going to say growing up with nothing. I said, no, that was a huge advantage. I had nothing to lose. I feel bad for the kids that grew up rich. I had a huge disadvantage, and that's I became successful really young. And it's not just about athletes. It's anyone that becomes successful young, because that became a two-way sword for me. That one, I was embarrassed to ask for help because my image would be blown, right? I was a fraud. I knew I didn't know what I did. I just wasn't humble enough to ask. If I could have asked for help with the capability and skills and knowledge I had acquired at such a young age, my skill set, I never would have gone through what I went through, because I would have had guidance. Someone else went through that and they would have told me all the dummy tax that they paid. So please, if you're 18, 16, 21, or even 50 years old, I have to remind myself every day, I hide those two words. Thank you's ingrained in my brain. So if you don't know thank you, hide that somewhere. But moreover, radical humility. I put it everywhere. People don't see it. It's in my wallet. It's on my nightstand. It's in my briefcase. And I run into it every time I open that thing. It says it right there in my briefcase. Radical humility.
Love it. Love it. Dave Meltzer, thanks so much. We appreciate it. And we will see you for part 2 in Southern California.
Thank you, Rod, so much. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for tuning into American Real. Be sure to visit our website, americanreal.tv, or search for us on iTunes or YouTube for past episodes. While you're there, please rate us or leave us a review, as that helps others find our show. I am truly grateful and appreciate all of your support. At American Real, we're on a mission to help as many people around the world fulfill their dreams and obtain their goals. If you'd like to be part of our inner circle or want one-on-one coaching, check out the American Real Learning Academy, where we have self-help groups and courses so you can build the best you. We also have a new Facebook group where you can connect with high achievers from around the world. If you want to go even further, maybe you're determined to write your own book or launch your own podcast, contact me today to see if we can help. You can reach me through Instagram or Facebook, or email me directly at roger@americanreal.tv. And speaking of podcasting, our next course will be starting soon. So if you're interested in launching your own podcast, join me and Podcast Your Passion. I'll take you through my 8-week course where I'll mentor you to build a world-class podcast. I'm only taking on a small group of people who want to share their passion through broadcasting, where I'll have you up on iTunes and YouTube within weeks so you can podcast your passion. Click on the link below for more information. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
In my head, I had a plan. I was like, I'm going to go in this car. Whatever car pulls up, I'm going to just go in there and I'm going to ask them to take me, to the bus station or somewhere. And you know what's crazy? I didn't think about saying, take me to the cops. Like call the police or anything, because I knew if I was to do that, that would have led me to go back home with my mom. And I really didn't want to go home to my mom either. Like, I just felt like I'm gonna get out of here and just find my own way somewhere else. And I got in the car and I was like, I'm not from here. I'm from Virginia. I got myself in a bad situation. Could you just take me to the bus station? And then the guy was like, okay. And I'm like, oh, I'm okay. And he drives me straight to the trafficker that I was with. A lot of people just kept coming in and out, sexually assaulting me. I wasn't eating. They'll come with like some water in order for me to use the bathroom. And then they will come back and say, are you going to do anything? Are you going to run away? And that's when I was like, no, I'm just going to do whatever you tell me to do. And that's when they kind of agreed to let me go out and start the process. All of this stuff I went through, this can't be the end, right? I was like, I want to write a book about my life, and I want to, be able to give people hope and to say that it doesn't matter what you went through, like you can still move on and you can still try to make the best of life and things like that, and you can still accomplish stuff. But this can't be the end of the story.